everyone, Jaymes Mansfield here bringing you yet another video. Oh my god, you guys, it's time for yet another episode of Iconic Blondes! Yes! Oh my god, it's been so long since I said that! I'm so excited to bring back the Iconic Blonde series, and we are going to cap it off with some drama, okay? We're going to be doing one of the most popular hairstyles in the 90s that honestly carried on longer than it should have and still carries on to this day. We're of course talking about Jennifer Aniston's iconic layered textured bob from Friends, I believe season 2. If I'm not mistaken, it might even be season 1. She didn't wear this hairstyle for very long, but we're going to talk a little bit about Jennifer Aniston and honestly like her history as an A-list superstar. And as I was doing research, I was like, wow, her life is a lot more interesting than I thought. Today we'll be styling this wig on the Femme Fatale in Sunshine Day, available at Jaymes Mansfield Beauty. Yes, now I'm so excited. I picked this wig because it already has some great like curls to it that'll work really well for this textured bob because it's very 90s, this cut, okay? So let's get started, shall we? Now, Jennifer Aniston, I did not know this. Apparently, you know, she comes from a pretty famous family. Some of you who are soap opera fans may know her father, John Aniston, who was on the soap opera Days of Our Lives forever. Jennifer Aniston grew up as a child of her soap opera famous father, John Aniston, and her mother was also a model. So she had a pretty good, you know, setup. She lived a little bit in New York, a little bit in LA. She had connections to basically get involved with show business. But she mentions that she also like totally like paid her dues. Like she worked regular jobs, just trying to survive and become an actress. Like she got the bug early on in her teen years. It wouldn't be until like the late 80s that things really started to happen for her. Now, I remember Jennifer Aniston because I was a huge fan of Julie Brown. And it's one of those things like, wait, is that who I think it is? Like watching back the old clips on YouTube that survived. She was actually on a sketch comedy show called The Edge, which was like a proto-Mad TV kind of like TV show. And Jennifer Aniston was the girl they brought on the cast to play like all the really hyper femme, pretty girl roles. Jennifer Aniston played those parts. And like watching it back, it's like, that's Jennifer Aniston. Like seeing her in the Wilson Phillips parody or Designing Women, like it was some good stuff. Unfortunately, The Edge was a little ahead of its time, so it did not become the major hit series that Mad TV did and was canceled after like one season. But it had potential to be something really big. It's just, you know, it came along a little too early. And as far as like acting goes in her early career, she really landed like a lot of bad stuff, like not a lot of great stuff. And she had really bad luck when it came to like television shows and stuff too. Like a couple of television shows she was cast in ended up getting canceled or just didn't go to series right away. But one of the roles that would bring her some prominence would be Leprechaun. Now, those of you who are horror fans may recognize her from this movie. Honestly, I remember watching this as a little kid and realizing like, wait, is that Jennifer Aniston? Like, I guess like watching interviews with her, she's like mortified by this role. Like she's so embarrassed by it. And honestly, I think she needs to lighten up a little bit because this movie is high camp and it is fun. Like it has its fan base. Like people love the Leprechaun. And I think she's honestly actually pretty good in it. Like she plays kind of a snot, stereotypical like valley girl, but she's a lot of fun in it. And she's a great final girl. Great departure for the usual final girl fare. Like, for once, you know, the ditzy valley girl wins, you know? She's not the first to die in the movie, which I think is actually pretty novel. Like, you haven't seen something like that happen since The Night of the Comet. Now, like I said, a lot of series that she had been doing up until the big role had not really fared too well. Like, she was in, like, a made-for-TV series of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where, like, even that didn't help. Like, she landed a lot of really great stuff. And one story I saw that was really fascinating was like, she had gotten one of her big first breaks as a teenager, where basically she was an extra on a soap for her father. And she ended up in the soap and like as an extra and she was shown on camera, but she later found out that like they moved the girl she was in the scene with out of frame and she was not seen just because she was John Aniston's daughter and they wanted to make sure she got in the frame. And her father made sure to tell her this as they're like together walking on the Walk of Fame. And she said she remembers getting a pit in her stomach. Like she felt so bad getting that special treatment. And she ended up taking work away from a girl and she felt so horrible about it. To where she wanted to make a point to not ever do that, not ever use the privilege like that. to where it would actually hurt others in order for her to get a come up. Which is like, that's pretty interesting considering like she understood the privilege she came from at a very early age and didn't try to take it too much advantage of it. Most people would like take that and run with it. Like if you got connection, girl, use it. But like I mentioned, like even her father being this huge soap opera star, that didn't guarantee her like a career right away. Because even then, soap operas at that point weren't a highly respected art form. Like they were often seen as like very cheesy and not really great acting. So it wasn't like the pedigree you think it would be. And she auditioned and auditioned and auditioned until one audition came. She was cast in a sitcom and she was convinced it was going to be a hit. But she also got another call for a show called Friends. Now, mind you, she's already cast in a sitcom. She's ready to start it. And she's basically talking with NBC saying, like, I don't want to play this character, Monica. Like, I don't see myself in her. So she gets the script, she reads it, and she goes to audition. She ultimately decides she wants to switch her role to Rachel because she saw herself more in that role. And as luck would have it, Courtney Cox, who was brought in to audition for Rachel, saw herself as Monica. And, you know, fate intervened and each girl got cast in the role they were meant to be cast in. Luck would have it, their debut episode was paired up against Danielle Steele's like movie of the week. So everybody watched Friends, nobody watched Danielle Steele, and people like overnight became obsessed with this show. And mind you, Jennifer Aniston was already cast on another show. Like she did Friends thinking this is gonna be a piece of shit and it's gonna probably can, but at least she did it. She signed on to Friends thinking, you know, well, I'm probably not gonna be a permanent character in this. We'll see where it goes. And overnight, people became obsessed with Jennifer Aniston and Rachel Green. Now her character Rachel Green is a selfish, spoiled rich girl at first. Like you first meet her in her wedding dress, like bawling her eyes out because she just ran away from her wedding. Like she's a runaway bride. And you know, she meets up with the friend gang and she gets reintroduced to everything and she has to basically relearn how to be like a normal person because she was a spoiled girl who didn't have to do anything. So, you know, she lives with Monica and a lot of the first season of Friends is kind of like Rachel's story. Like, you know, she's acclimating back into society and being a working person that doesn't need her parents' money. And the dynamic of Friends was very, very interesting because the show creator made sure like they had to get along. Like this has to work or the show has nothing. He had a very interesting approach where like he made sure they all hung out in his dressing room because it was the biggest because he wanted them all to like really gel with each other and become friends. And it became like that. Like they'd always go bowling together or play poker or go out to dinner after show wrap. Like they became a really tight circle. And so much so that like when it came time to renew for the season after the show had become a huge hit, they all had bargained to double their pay. And by the time the show had wrapped, Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, and Lisa Kudrow were making $1 million an episode, making them the highest paid actresses in television history at that time. It was an astronomical deal they managed to work out for themselves. All right, now I'm gonna tease the rest of this and I'll be right back. All right, we are back. Now I have it all teased out. Let's start cutting it because the cuts is what makes this hairstyle, okay? It's all about the layering with this. Now, what I think is so fascinating about this hairstyle is like, she didn't really wear it for that long. Like, I think she only wore it for like a season. And like, that's really shows like the power of pop culture and the power of a good haircut. Because again, I feel like it's just because a lot of her promo pictures were with this hairstyle that people just became really obsessed with it. Like they promoted Friends with her with this hairstyle. So much so like when other seasons came along, like her hairstyle was never this glamorous ever again. Like she only ever wore it like this for like a season, but that was enough to like cement it in pop culture as a phenomenon where women were going to their hairdressers and asking how they could get this textured, layered bob. And I will say like, it's still a phenomenon. Like I remember not even that long ago, there was a dance mom I knew back in Milwaukee who flat out told me like, I tell my hairdresser every time I go in, give me the Jennifer Aniston from Friends. Like that's what I want. And like she's had a hairstyle for years. Like she decided, this looks good on me. This is what I'm doing. Shout out to Sarah. Also, I was looking at research of like how this hairstyle came about. Jennifer Aniston mentioned that like she never really liked the hair, like because she could never really recreate it. Like the hairdresser on set that did it for her, she claims was like stoned out of his brains with a pair of scissors and a blow dryer when he concocted this hairstyle. And so much so, like, it was textured and beautiful and layered, but she couldn't recreate it. Like, it never looked that good as it did in the promos when she was doing it herself. It's like she hated the hairstyle because, like, she couldn't recreate it. A big part of Jennifer Aniston's, like, legacy has to be, like, her dating history. Like, she's dated a wide range of people, from like the lead singer of Counting Crows, guest stars on Friends like Tate Donovan. She dated Paul Rudd for a brief period, but it wasn't until she was set up on a studio date with Brad Pitt that things really started to take off. Now, mind you, Brad Pitt was a huge movie star come like the late 90s, and Jennifer Aniston was nothing to sneeze at either. She was like I said, the biggest star on television. The agents had a field day putting these two together to see what would happen, and sparks flew all right. And like, they were dating for a long time, got married in a private ceremony, and they were like Hollywood's it couple. Now, I have to say, like, I was there for this. I remember it. Like, VH1 was obsessed with them. They were always like putting them on as like the champion couple of like,
this is couples goals, okay?
Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. But things would not always be so wonderful. As the story goes, Jennifer Aniston had done a bunch of interviews saying like she was going to take a year for herself, but when she was done, she really wanted to start a family. According to sources here and there, like, none of this is actually really confirmed, like, it's all rumor. But Brad Pitt wasn't ready to settle down in that regard yet. But he had signed on to do a movie called Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which paired him with Angelina Jolie. Now, this feels like such like, I feel like everyone knows this, but then I remember like there's a whole generation that have no idea about this and what a huge scandal it was. So let's get into it. Now, Angelina Jolie, for those of you who don't know, she was a major movie star. Like, she did like the Tomb Raider. She had an Oscar for Girl Interrupted. And she was known for like her crazy romance with Billy Bob Thornton, where like they had one point got their own tattoos of their names on each other. Like, she was an intense personality. And she was in the process of cleaning up her image. Like, she adopted some children, became a mother, and she had signed on to do Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Brad Pitt, which was like, you know, certified A-list action movie. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie. People were hype. Like, the poster for it was iconic. Like, I remember walking past it, like them side by side, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And like Angelina in that black dress with the heels, everything. Like, we all remember it. It was a gigantic hit, but some might say like they got a little too close while filming this movie because they fell in love. Suddenly, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston had split, and this became a headline sensation. Like, Trouble in Paradise, Hollywood's golden couple splits. And Angelina Jolie was at the center of it, and all the stuff was angling at Angelina, this big old homewrecker, which is like singing back to a previous iconic Brunettes episode with Elizabeth Taylor, with Eddie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, and Elizabeth Taylor embroiled in this big scandal of,
I can't believe this vixen stole America's sweetheart's husband.
like, it was totally the same thing. Only my generation's, this was the Eddie Fisher, Liz Taylor scandal for my generation. And people had a field day with this, trying to speculate what exactly went wrong. And Jennifer Aniston, she basically withdrew. She didn't look at any of the press or any of that. Like, she tried her best just to not look at anything because her name was everywhere. Like, every magazine had her face on it. And it's just like,
poor Jen.
like, it was crazy. The really gross treatment of women that was going on with both sides. Like, Jennifer Aniston, like, people were either saying she's a victim or she was a wet mop that had this coming, or she was boring. And Angelina Jolie fared way worse, where she was seen as like this big vixen, you know, slutty homewrecker. It was horrible. But alas, like, Jennifer Aniston would have a good uptick in her career because she was beginning to dabble in doing more film work. Like, she had already conquered television, and she was getting really tired of doing Friends. Like, she had gotten to the point where, like, she was saying like she couldn't see herself portraying Rachel Green anymore. Like, she had nothing left to give to this role. And she was constantly trying to find like roles that would work for her. Like, unfortunately, she had a lot of box office, not even bombs. I would say like they were very successful with audiences. Like, audiences loved her, but critics didn't. And she was a big romantic comedy star, almost like the same vein as like a Sandra Bullock type. Like, that was where they were marketing her in. But she wanted to do more dramatic work. It wasn't until she did the indie film The Good Girl that she really showed her acting chops and started winning awards and stuff. So like, this is what she was distracting herself with, was her work. Because again, like, the tabloids, this went on for years, like the speculations and everything. And like, classically enough, like, she never really addressed it publicly. Like, she never really gave much of a statement about the situation. She just kind of accepted it. And I feel like that's what both sides kind of did. Like, for sake of, you know, each other's family and privacy, a bunch of them had kids. Like, you don't want to get your families involved in this kind of stuff. Like, it's already gonna be rough enough. Whew. All right, we're kind of getting there. Like I said, a lot of this hairstyle comes from just kind of like doing crazy layers and flipping the hair around. Like it kind of reminds me of like a Carol Brady-esque kind of hairstyle. Like moms loved this hair. Like I said, like I know moms that still live in this hair. This is right up there in the Hairdo Hall of Fame. The Dorothy Hamill, the Farrah Fawcett, the Jennifer Aniston. Women love this hairstyle, especially Midwestern moms. There's a certain type, the credit union type, that have this with the highlights and everything. All right, now I'm gonna texture this a little more. I'll be right back. All right, I am back. I have to say, this is one of the most quintessential 90s looking hairstyles I have ever done. Now, the real key to this is taking like little pieces and like clipping the ends like that, like to really texturize it. Because this hair is all about the texture and the way you lay it. Here's what I've been doing so far. It's honestly like, it's hilarious. They loved them some layers in the 90s. Like there were some actresses that kind of mobbed this hairstyle or did variations on it, like a Callista Flockhart kind of look, or even Courtney Cox to a certain extent kind of like mobbed it a little bit. It was like face flattering. I will say that, like if you had like that girl next door kind of face, it really did frame your face really well. But it had to be such a pain in the ass to maintain because it's like a lot of blow drying. She is looking like her. Like I'm kind of gooped. I'm just gonna keep texturizing it. Like, yeah, this is short coming back, but we've reached the end of our Jennifer Aniston history. She's, you know, just a lady of Hollywood now. A woman of pedigree, you could say. So I'm going to keep texturizing this and I'll be right back with the final result. Welcome back. This is the final result. Oh my God, honey, I look like one of the friends. This hair freaked me out when I put it on. I was like, oh my God, am I back in my childhood? So many people had this hairstyle. I cannot even begin to tell you. So this has been fun. This is definitely the most 90s hairstyle I've made in quite a bit. What a feat. You know, it's totally Jen Aniston. I mean, I can understand why she probably didn't like keep this hairstyle alive. Because like after everyone starts copying it, like why do you want to wear it anymore? But this has been fun. This one has been requested for a while. I've been asking for the Rachel Green. Here you have it. An iconic hairdo that has its spot in the Hairdo Hall of Fame. Okay, right up there with Farrah, Dorothy Hamill, Jen Aniston, the Rachel Green. Now, before I close out, I have to take a moment. A Venmo moment where I thank everyone who's tipped me on Venmo. I would like to thank Mona. Thank you so much, Mona. I appreciate you. Jen, thanks, Jen. Amy. Patrick. I also have a YouTube super thanks from Roger. Thank you, Roger. Thank you all so much for the tips to the channel. I do appreciate it. Now, if you guys enjoyed this wig, you can actually own it. It'll be available on my DEPOP, where I sell a lot of my used wigs. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye. Now hit the outro. Click here and see my doll collection. It's glorious. Or see me recreate Nymphia Wynn's beehive wig from RuPaul's Drag Race. Come on, click it. You know you want to. If you don't click it, I'll make a tabloid headline about you. So click it. Estoy perdida.